Well, what drew me to the subject of forgiveness, I had covered an execution in Oregon, 2 executions, and then subsequent to covering that, I kind of dedicated myself to try to understand the capital punishment, the death penalty, at greater lengths, and try to understand crime and punishment at greater lengths. So I did lots of interviews. But it was the interview I did with a woman in my own small town that really struck a chord with me. She had just driven the 10 hours north home to Oregon from visiting a friend on death row in San Quentin. And since I was so interested in capital punishment, I asked her to tell me more. And she said, well, the man is a friend. We've been friends for, at that point, I think it would have been maybe 10 years. And he'd been on death row for 24 years at that point. She goes, yeah, he was the man who stabbed my daughter to death. And I was flabbergasted, the concept of friendship with someone that would cause you such great pain. And she lived with this pain and agony for 12 years and lived with this promise that once this man was executed, she would have closure. She could have her life back. And came to a conclusion in that 12 years of living with hate and waking with hate. She described it as every morning before she'd put on her glasses, she'd reach to her counter and she'd drink down a glass of poison. That's what the hate felt like. Just wishing that this poison would kill him. And in this journey, she started recognizing how it was destroying her. So she started seeking different opportunities. She learned how to meditate. She started reading about different religious philosophies from all around the world. And she saw that the common theme in all of that was this idea that you have to forgive. You have to forgive. And she didn't have any idea how to go about that and didn't really think that she could and thought, well, maybe intellectually that would be something I can accept. But it was one night she woke up in the middle of the night and she penned a letter to this man, and she described her daughter, how beautiful she was, how vivacious, how interested she was in animals and wanted to be a veterinarian, and how close she was with this woman, this young girl. And then she talked about her pain of losing her daughter. And she concluded the letter by saying, I'm forgiving you. I can't go on hating you. And she said it wasn't the act of writing the letter. It was the act the next day of putting that letter in an envelope and walking that letter to a mailbox and opening up that mailbox and putting it on the ledge and then letting it go and hearing it drop and knowing that it was irretrievable. And then she describes this sensation of being cleansed, of being purged, a physical sensation of being able to stand more upright, breathe more deeply, hear things she hadn't heard, of being alive. And I sat in that room, dumbfounded, because Elijah, my son, was 3. And all I could imagine that if something terrible happened to my son, I'd want to destroy. I'd want to be filled with rage. If I could wake up in the morning, I'd be filled with so much pain and rage that the idea of forgiveness would be so far away. And so you know when you're in the presence of something you're supposed to learn from. So I was in the presence of Abigail, my friend, and there was obviously something I needed to learn. And so I sat with the idea of what am I going to do with this for about 6 months, and then I began The Crying Tree. And I thought maybe if I could take it into a fictive world and invent a character and walk that character's journey from the loss of a child to an end point where she is forgiven, a man who is on death row for killing her child. What would that journey look like? What would I learn from that journey? So that's what brought me into the subject of forgiveness.